What's going on, everybody? This is Nick from House of Paint 203, bringing you part 2 of the Griffon series. This is the Diving Griffon, another release in the Wave 12 launch by Nolzur's Marvelous Miniatures and WizKids. In part 1, we gave him a full base coat, and I actually went back in on the lion portion of his body and gave him an extra coat of the khaki that I used originally. I didn't think you really needed to see that. I just went over his lion half in khaki again because I didn't feel as though the first coat was enough. So I went in and did that. But today I want to start going in on some mid-tone highlights, specifically on the wings. And the wings are going to take us a little while because we are going to get pretty involved with the detail on his wings. So, that being said, let's jump right in. As always, I want to give a special shout out to friend of the show, Dominic Marriott, owner and founder of Critic UK, all the way across the pond in the UK. Dominic is a crafter of dice trays, dice towers, dice vaults, dice boxes, you name it. Dominic makes it, and you need to check out his stuff so that you can up your game at your gaming table today. Also, while you're here, be sure to smite like and slam subscribe so that you can stay up to date on all the latest content that I am putting out there in my quest to paint the manual. And of course, today this week we are working on the Griffon, one of my most anticipated models that I've done on this channel thus far. I gotta say, loving the subscriptions that I'm seeing coming in. Loving the comments. You guys have been awesome. Keep those coming. I try to respond to everybody, but just having a great time connecting with you guys and spreading the love for this hobby. So, as always, I thank you, and I can't wait to dig in here on the Griffon. Okay, so as a mid-tone on the wings, I'm going to try to really pick out that texture in the individual strands of the wings. It's going to get a little tedious. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, or the gist of what I'm going to do, and then I'm probably going to speed things up, but I just want to show you like what I have in mind. So for my mid-tone, I'm going with a mix of heavy brown and the Rhinox hide, which was my base. So it's going to be about maybe 60-40 heavy brown. And I'm going to just pick out this individual detail here. Again, I don't want to completely paint over the wings here, but I just want to kind of give that impression of, you know, lighter feathers. So I'm going over with the side of my brush. Okay, so again, I do want those mid-tones to be subtle, but this is more like a sub-mid-tone. I mean, there's very little discrepancy between the mid-tone and the, excuse me, and the base, so that's probably a mistake on my part. Not a mistake, but I mean, you know, probably just gonna have to do an extra step here in this video, so I might go in this video with a pure heavy brown, no mixture. Just gonna see how the mid-tone looks on the feathers down here. Again, I'm just kind of grazing with the side of my brush just to almost like a wet dry brush, just to try to pick up the raised areas. But yeah, this is kind of a darker, more of a darker mid-tone than I would like. You know what, that's okay. Didn't hurt us any, but it might have cost us some time, but you know, that's fine. Cost us some time painting a miniature. I mean, I can't think of time better spent. So I'm gonna switch gears here while the wings up here are drying. Underneath the wings, I'm gonna go with a dry brush. On top is where I really want to bring out the detail in the feathers. So I think we're gonna give those a rest for now, and I'm gonna visit the lion body here. And for the lion body, I base coated him with khaki. I kind of want to bring him up to kind of an ochre color, like a golden ochre. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the intended color that I want his body in the palette right now, and I'm going to give it a little mix with the khaki. On his lion body here. Leaving the khaki in the recesses. I'm liking how this is looking so far. All right, I'm pretty happy with his lion's coat right there. And now I'd like to revisit the wings. All right, so just using heavy brown by itself, I'm going to be trying to bring out these individual feather strands. This might be kind of a psychotic endeavor, but I think it will be worth it. A necessary step by any means. This is just a step that I am taking to try to get the most out of this model, because again, these models are so incredibly detailed that you want to try to capitalize on the detail that they're giving you, that you have to work with. So very lightly, just almost just trying to like graze the feather. All right, so that that bottom row of feathers is done. I'm gonna speed things up here for you. So now you've seen like kind of how I've done it. I've just kind of gone over each individual strand with heavy brown, and I'm gonna continue that process all up the feathers. So this is gonna take me a while, but you are gonna see it in a matter of a few minutes. All right, so there is the first wing. So we have some good detail coming out here with that mid-tone. I'm not sure how much I'm gonna go with a larger highlight or a brighter highlight. Again, I want to bring that up to like a almost like a golden in some areas, but I think that's pretty good. Now we're gonna go ahead and take care of the next wing over here. I'm actually gonna try a different method with this one. As you saw, I went into each individual feather and tried to pick out the detail manually. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my number 2 and I'm going to just try something. I'm not going to like saturate it with paint. I'm going to actually get a little bit on it, but I'm actually going to just graze these feathers with the side of my brush here and see if I can pick out detail like that. And that's what I'm kind of looking for right there. So it's not quite similar to a dry brush, and then I'm trying to just pick out the higher edges, but it is not a dry brush because I don't have dry paint residue on my brush. I actually have wet paint from my palette on my brush. I've thinned it out significantly, but it's still wet. And I'm just trying to pick out the raised areas and the raised bits of detail here. I want there to be a ton of paint on my brush, but I also don't want there to be dry paint residue like you would a dry brush, because this is not a dry brush. It's time consuming if it's successful. See, paint here is a little too wet for my liking, so I'm going to try to be careful with it. I really don't want to get in the recesses because I want to leave that dark brown in the recesses in there. It's creating a nice contrast. Alright, so the upper portion of that wing is done. And here's what we're working with that's so far looking pretty good for a mid-tone. Definitely bringing that detail in the wings out. Well, I've got the heavy brown in here. I think I'm going to continue with it on the fur. I think this is technically part of the lion's mane, but it like bleeds into the feathers, so I'm gonna give it some, give it an applied highlight here. And same thing underneath. Smaller details in these feathers. Same thing over on this side. All right, cruising. Gonna dry brush the tip of his tail while I have the heavy brown out. Underneath his wings, I'm going to give him a dry brush as well. Not quite as pronounced as the upper portion of his wings would be. Yeah, I'm not trying to pick them out. I'm not trying to pick it out, kind of crazily. So, for example, he's flying like this. Here's the upper portion of his wings. Here's the under portion of his wings. All right, wings are done. Mid-tone on the lion body is done. Tip of the tail. I do want to touch on his the eagle head and the talons here. So that's what I'm gonna do. All right, so for his talons, I'm gonna be giving him a mix of orange ochre and also some sun yellow. So sun yellow is a very bright yellow. And I'm gonna be doing like some edge highlights with that, but this is mostly gonna be orange ochre here. So I'm gonna be just it's not terrible. I think it'll look better once I get the claws done. But I think what I might have to do is go in with a wash just to try to dull that down a little bit. Because right now I think it's too in your face. And that might be the work of the dark undercoat as well, which could have been a mistake initially. But you know what? Sometimes this process is all about kind of making your mistakes work for you, because you can't really go back and change anything once you're in this stage of a project. So you just kind of have to live with it and make it work. So I think what I'll have to do is go in with a little bit of a wash try to dull down this color here after it dries, but just to set myself at ease, I'm gonna go in with the claws and really give a nice a really nice shade of black to the claws here, or the talons, I should say. So I feel like that'll give me a good kind of benchmark as to where this talon is right now. Alright, gonna let that dry, see where we're at. While I'm waiting, I'm gonna go back in here. I think my problem here is the base underneath it is so dark, and I'm trying to paint with something that is relatively yellow in nature, so that's where I'm kind of running into this little issue. But I might have to give this more of a well, I'm definitely gonna have to give this another coat as I try to problem solve these talons. I think I am going to have to revisit the leg, at least this last leg here. So now I'm going over the feathers of his head in a pure bone white as a mid-tone. Kind of pick out a majority of the detail. Using a brush that's moderately wet and using the side of the brush to kind of graze the raised areas here. Okay, bring that white out just a little bit. base in his eyes, I want to go with a little khaki. Gonna try something a little scary. On his feet, I want to try a flesh wash. To bring out those little divots there. Just to kind of keep it cohesive. I'm gonna do the same thing on his beak. Claws. Alright, he's really starting to kind of come together here. I think this is going to be a good place to. Oh, you know what? When I'm doing this, I retracted. Go to the lion's paws here while I have the black out. I don't want to do it in black, actually. I'll mix a little black with some heavy blue-gray. Now I think we can call part 2 done. In part 3, we are going to be giving him some final highlights. We're going to be bringing out his base with some special environmental effects as well. And we are going to let this bad boy fly. Thank you for joining me as always. Information on how to follow me on all my social media platforms is immediately following the video, as is information on how to follow Dominic Marriott of Credit UK. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.